Hey guys, and welcome back to GCC. My name is Damon, and today I just wanted to do a little something different. It's going to be a book review, actually, on the Five Nights at Freddy's trilogy, the Silver Eyes, the Twisted Ones, and the Fourth Closet. I just finished reading all three of them. I started the first one about a week ago, and only a few days ago finished the third one. So you could say I was hooked, I suppose. That would be correct in many ways. After I started reading the first one, I knew that I wanted to find out more, and I wanted to find out what might have been happening along with the games and stuff. I know that they're two different universes, but they overlap, I think, quite a bit. So I think it's good to understand both and try to paint a picture for yourself of what you think really is going on here. Just to preface this review, I read these novels after watching, I think, all of the FNAF videos on Matt Pat's The Game Theorists channel on YouTube. Those videos and Matt Pat himself, I suppose, are actually what really got me interested in Five Nights at Freddy's pretty much entirely. It all started a couple years ago. I saw these Five Nights at Freddy's Funko Pops and action figure, there's all kinds of stuff at GameStop, and I was like, what is this? It looks like it's supposed to be a kid-friendly thing, but it does not look kid-friendly at all, It was very murderous and bloody and gross. And so from there I kind of looked into it and I saw it was a game. It looked like a pretty cheesy indie game, I suppose. And so at that point I kind of just wrote it off. And then fast forward until maybe 4 months ago, and I first started watching Matt Pat's theories on Five Nights at Freddy's. Once I saw kind of how convoluted and mysterious the lore of the game was, I just wanted to know more, and the more I dug deeper, the more confused I got. And at this point, even after reading all three books, watching hours and hours of theory videos and timeline videos and stuff, I still can honestly say I don't really know what's going on. And that's both a good thing and a bad thing. I am going to try and keep this review as spoiler-free as possible, but as with any review, you get a few plot hints sprinkled throughout, so watch at your own risk, I suppose. So the first novel is The Silver Eyes, and I went into it with my own expectations, and I was wrong about almost all of them. But that novel had a pretty great start. I'd heard the names Charlie and Michael and Afton and William a lot throughout the Game Theorist videos and throughout all of the Let's Plays that I watched on YouTube. That those names were mentioned quite a bit and seemed like major characters. So to see those names be kind of given faces and given personalities behind them was really cool. It was really fun seeing the characters like Charlie and Marla and Lamar and all of them experience what it felt like for me to play the games, and it was really, really cool seeing those emotions and the fear and the intrigue established and printed on in the book. That was really, really cool to see. The pacing of The Silver Eyes was pretty solid. You kind of jump right in a way. So the main character is Charlie. I suppose it's not really a spoiler because if you read the back, then you'll understand that the main character is Charlie. Despite these books being labeled as young adult and found in the younger fantasy or fiction section of your library or bookstore, it didn't feel like it was written for a 15-year-old. Scott Cawthon and Kira Breed-Risley did a really good job of setting up the characters in a way that did it quickly and did it efficiently, but did it in a way that still made you kind of get the gist of each person's personality, because all the characters are very different and behave differently, talk differently, are from different places, they're into different things. They're all unique characters, and to be able to do that in such a short amount of time before really kickstarting the rest of the book was just impressive. As you come up on the ending of the book, you hope that there's going to be a resolution to this conflict. You hope that the big bad is going to get it and the good guys are going to win. But part of you knows that that's not how it happens. It's not how it works, at least not in the games. So it makes sense that the books would follow in those same footsteps. There is a resolution in a way. There is a tidying up at the end. but then you're left with just like a couple questions, and it gives you this good tie-in to the next book because it's not like a real cliffhanger. You're not dangling from like this precipice, we're just waiting to find out, waiting to be saved by the next book. But it's definitely enough to get me interested. And as I got to that point in the book, I went on Amazon, I ordered the second one, so it'd be there next day, which leads me to the Twisted Ones, the second novel in the Five Nights at Freddy's trilogy. The Twisted Ones was pretty good. I would give it about a 3.5 out of 5, about a 7 out of 10. It started pretty quickly. There's a small time gap between the ending of the first book and the start of the second book, and so that was expected, and I kind of figured that would happen because the first one ended fairly neatly. If you didn't know Five Nights at Freddy's, and you didn't know that there was going to be more, and you didn't know that the big bad wasn't truly defeated, then you would actually probably feel pretty good about it. But this one, it kind of jumps you right in and explains that nope, the big bad's not dead. Not everything worked out the way you wanted it to. Like there's more to it than we first thought in the first book. So the second book started strong, but then I felt like it kind of tapered off. The middle portion of the book, I felt was kind of just filler. And then as I came up on the ending of the second book, there was a similar kind of conflict and resolution that we saw in the first book. But it wasn't as satisfying, I guess, because it kind of felt like a copy and paste in a way. It wasn't directly the same. It's not like if you read the first book, then you don't need to read the second because you know what's going to happen. That's not the case. It didn't feel unique enough in a way. It raised a lot more questions than it answered, which is one problem that I had with it. After I finished it, I almost had a bad taste in my mouth because I felt like it was entirely setting up the third book, which is fine, but it doesn't have the same strength on its own that the first book had. So that was disappointing, and that's why I would give it about a 7 out of 10 after I gave the first book like a 8.5 out of 10. And this leads me to the third book, which is The Fourth Closet. And to my surprise, the third book kind of did the reverse of the second book. It started a little bit slower, in my opinion, a little bit weaker, and then it just kind of kicked it up a gear and just took off. The third book was probably my favorite out of all three. A lot happens in this book. There's quite a few twists and like fake twists where you expect that there's gonna be a twist and it's different. So you got twisted on your twist, and it's just a whole bunch of twists. That was really fun. It was exciting and confusing. The Fourth Closet was consistently more exciting than both the first book and the second book, in my opinion. The danger or the conflict in this book felt a lot more serious and a lot more real, I guess, than the first and second book. In the first one and the second one, you assume that people are going to make it because there's 3 books, and not everyone can pull a George R.R. Martin and kill off all the main characters in like the first book or 2. So you assume that some people are going to make it, and spoilers, you're right, some people do. And knowing that this was the last book, I kind of assumed that the stakes were higher. The ending of The Fourth Closet kind of left me wanting more in a way, and that's mainly because I just wanted more of an explanation. There was a bunch of answers to the questions that I'd had since I started, the Silver Eyes way long ago, like last week. But there was a bunch of more questions that were raised at the same time that never truly got answered. And even going on Reddit and trying to find, threads of people going over what they thought the ending of the book meant, I just realized that I wanted more official stuff, and I suppose that's how it is with Five Nights at Freddy's in general. We've been wanting Scott Cawthon to kind of come out and like tell us exactly what's going on for a long time, but we know that he never will because it's Five Nights at Freddy's and it's Scott Cawthon. He loves his mystery and his intrigue. So if you're a fan of Five Nights at Freddy's, or you're just a fan of young adult horror with a little dabbling in fantasy and science fiction and stuff, then I definitely would recommend this book series to you. Each book can be found on Amazon for about $5 or $6. So I'll leave some links down below to Amazon or to Barnes & Noble or whatever, where you can where you can find them on sale. And I actually got my wife hooked on them too. We were actually laying in bed, and I had the cover up in front of me, and I was kind of facing her, so she was seeing like the cover of the book, and it's got, you know, I think it's got Freddy or something, his face like split on the front cover and the back cover. So when it's open, you see like Freddy's face, and it was kind of dark. I only had my little reading light on, and she was really creeped out, and she's like, "What is this book that you're reading?" I was like, "Babe, it's Five Nights at Freddy's," and she was like, "Is that the creepy game that you tried to get me to play?" And I was like, "Yep, yeah, it was." So when I finished, she asked me if she could take a look at it. I was like, "Yeah, of course you can." And then next thing I know, she's finished the first book and is waiting for me to finish like the second book, and she's like urging me, like, "Have you read today? How much have you read? You almost done? I'm waiting for you to finish." So she's kind of pushing me to finish the second one, and I actually let her read the third one first because I knew she's wanted to, like, she was hooked. She just wanted to keep going with it. So I let her read the Fourth Closet first, and then when she finished, that's when I picked it up and started reading it. So that's why it took me about a week. It's because there was like a day or two where she was reading it, and I was the one bugging her, like, "You done yet? You done? You done? You done?" So, but it was really fun being able to engage with her and like ask her what she thought of the books and what she thought like the endings meant. So that was probably the most fun for me. As far as connections to the games, I think there's quite a few. At this point, I'm gonna switch over to like a spoiler mode, I guess, and kind of talk about some of the connections to the games that are in these books. So if you haven't read them yet and you're concerned about spoilers, just pause it now, go read the books, come back, finish it off, and let me know down in the comments below what you think about these connections and my theories. So the obvious connection is both Henry and William Afton. Henry is Charlie's father. He was the one who created, Freddy Fazbear and Bonnie and Chica and Foxy and everyone. He wore the golden Freddy suit, and William Afton, his partner, wore the golden Bonnie suit. So that's a couple of connections in itself that we've seen in the games. We know that I believe it's William Afton wears golden Bonnie suit at some point and becomes Springtrap, So we see in one of the FNAF mini games, Afton being almost forced into the golden Bonnie suit by the souls of the dead kids. At which point the spring locks fail, and see him kind of like tweet and twitch and freak out and stuff. And he, at that point, I believe, becomes Springtrap, which is pretty similar to what happened in the first book. In the third book, we meet a whole nother group of kids that were kidnapped by William Afton. These ones, fortunately, are alive though, so that's good. And some of their names are Susie, Cassidy, and Fritz. This is exciting because most of those names we have heard before or read before or seen before, mentioned in either the FNAF games or the survival logbook. At the end of FNAF 6, we saw a bunch of gravestones which are marked Gabriel, Fritz, Susie, and Jeremy. One of them is obscured by grass, and then one of them is like off in the distance by a tree. Fritz and Susie, I believe, are the names of two kids that we met in the Fourth Closet. They were the ones that Jessica and Marla rescued from the pizzeria. At the end of the Fourth Closet, John goes to the graveyard that Charlie brought him to either 1 or 2 books ago, and what he finds there is the grave of Henry, and then off to the side he looks over and he sees a gravestone marked for Charlie, with only 3 years between her date of birth and her date of death, which means that the kid that was kidnapped at Fredbear's Family Diner in the book was actually Charlie and not Sammy. But the fact that Fritz and Susie have gravestones here in this picture doesn't really make sense to me, because these kids were rescued in the Fourth Closet, and I suppose this is a difference between the games and the books, and it's not something that needs to connect because they're separate. But with so much overlap, it's just starting to get confusing, trying to figure out what is connected, what isn't, and why there are differences between them. So all in all, it was a really fun trilogy. I wish that there was an epilogue for the ending of the Fourth Closet, because there's a few more questions that I thought should have been answered, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad I read it. It gave me a better understanding of some of the characters and their backgrounds, despite the fact that it may not be the exact same in the games. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, hit like. If you didn't, hit dislike. Make sure that you hit subscribe, though, so you can be notified of my upcoming videos when they are released, so you can watch them, because they should be good and fun, because they're fun for me to make. So have a good one.